It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
Wait.
Man, this is the Super Bowl.
Ow! Ow!
Here we go. Down from the gun to the touchdown. He's back.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. You know, I gotta say, all right, I kind of was, in a way, hoping that the Red Wings' decision whether or not they were going to be in the playoffs was going to be already known going into this show. But for better or for worse, we are entering the final game of the season. And the Red Wings are still not technically in the playoffs, but could clinch the playoffs tonight if they can get a win, or at least 1 point, and the Capitals lose. And then also, if they just get 1 point, the Penguins would have to lose, or at least get 1 point tomorrow. Regardless, basically, the Red Wings have to win. To give themselves the best opportunity, they have to win tonight in Montreal. Comeback win last night was crazy. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. We got a great show. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, the Pistons are a dumpster fire. They're the worst franchise in sports. We're going to get into that because we have to break down as their season came to an end this past Sunday. Just a couple of days ago, the Detroit Pistons finished their single worst season in franchise history. Could not get any worse than they had up to this point. Meanwhile, NBA playoffs start tonight. 7:30, I believe, is tip-off for the, I believe it's Lakers-Pelicans in the play-in. So we got NBA playoff basketball on right now. I would have that on, but because the Red Wings are in the midst of this playoff chase that somehow is still alive for them, I've got that on, obviously. Then we'll break down a little bit of Tiger baseball. Probably do that near the end of the show because it's less pertinent. Or, I don't know, we'll see if we can spurt it in, because depending on how this is going, I might just, stay live and just sort of live react after we get through the news of the week. But, I mean, it really is coming down to it. So that's where we're going to start, obviously, is the NHL, and particularly the Red Wings. We'll get into the playoff preview later into the show and, where we sit. But, first of all, here's the situation, all right? Red Wings, they lose on Tuesday to the Capitals. It's a horrible game. They lose 2-1, basically a shutout. They score their first goal with 1 second to go in the third period. And then on Thursday, they lose to the Penguins in overtime, I believe. Another game where it's oh my gosh, it feels like your season is over at this point. You had basically the way I saw it was okay, at this point you got to win out or else the season's over. They beat the Maple Leafs in overtime on Saturday. Then yesterday, they come back and beat the Canadiens in overtime. And now they go into Montreal, final game of the season, in a back-to-back situation. The clinching scenarios are this. If they win and the Capitals lose, whether it's in overtime or in regulation, you're in. The game just got started here right now. So again, if I get distracted, this is the reason why. And you don't want to turn over the puck early, Reimer. They got James Reimer in net. Alex Lyon with the night off because he just was in net yesterday and he gave up 4 goals. So not exactly a great situation between the bars for the Detroit Red Wings basically all year. But the other scenario is if the Wings lose in overtime and the Capitals lose, then and the Penguins also lose in overtime or lose outright, then you're in. That is obviously a much less ideal scenario, but is still technically possible, although there's a lot more layers to it. However, the Penguins game is not until tomorrow. Let me actually pull up the standings in particular here. Yeah, so because if you lose in overtime and the Penguins win and the Capitals lose, the Penguins would match you in points, and I believe they would get the tiebreaker because they beat us last time, but I think they would just get the tiebreaker in general. Although I'm not sure because we would have more regulation wins than them on the season, regardless of whether or not they win in regular. The point is basically you got to win, and none of it matters anyway if the Capitals win. That's the big story because unfortunately yesterday the Capitals beat the Bruins. They shut them out 2-0. I was so disappointed in Boston. You had one job, one opportunity. Okay, you're one of the best teams in the league. Your playoff spot is secured, and you get shut out to a team with a negative goal differential. The Washington Capitals have a negative 38 goal differential. For as bad as the run has been for the Red Wings, they still have a positive goal differential. They're a +3 team in goal differential. And the Capitals are terrible in goal differential. But, oh my gosh, we just got away with murder there as they just miss a wide open net. Meanwhile, the Washington-Philly game has just gotten started. Are they just going to keep that bar down there with the Washington-Philly score? Okay, it just shifted and it stayed as Washington-Philly score. So I don't know if it's going to refresh. I'm assuming it's not going to be a live viewer thing. Yeah, okay, so it refreshes every time they go through it. But anyway, look, my situation with this team is this. If you get into the playoffs, the season is a success. If you don't get into the playoffs, the season is a failure. It's that simple. And I don't want to hear, well, we were a bubble team. That's what Yzerman said. Well, I don't care. Okay? You're in year 5 of a rebuild. You got to make the playoffs. Full stop. Don't care. I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about the flu. I don't want to hear about Derek Lalonde. I don't want to hear about Jeff Petrie. These are Steve Yzerman's problems that he has either created for himself or are just what the team is, right? It's just the fact of the league, right? Injuries are a fact of the NHL. They're a fact of any game, but they're a fact of the NHL. So I don't want to hear any of that, okay? You have to make the playoffs, which means, first of all, you got to do your job. You can't lose this game outright. Because if you lose this game outright, you're eliminated. If you're going to lose it in overtime. Because that at least still keeps you alive somewhat. But obviously, win, right? That's it's not even asking for all that much, okay? Because we're talking about the Montreal Canadiens. Do you know where the Montreal Canadiens rank in the league? Well, in the Eastern Conference, they're in 9th place. Or they're second to last, not 9th place. They're 9th relative to the wild card rankings. They have a total of 75 points. They have a 30, 36, and 15 record on the season. They're a negative 52 goal differential. Even at home, they're not good. They're 60, 20, and 4 at home. In their last 10, they are 3, 4, and 3. That is a record of 3 and 7 in terms of wins and losses. Obviously, they get 3 points from the overtime losses. It's not like you're going up against Boston back to back or Tampa Bay or any of these really good teams. You're going up against one of the worst teams in the league. And you are supposed to be a bubble team. You're supposed to be a playoff team at the most. Win. Just go out there and win. Go out there and dominate. If you're a playoff team, you win this game. And there should be no doubt about it. Now, as far as positives of this team, I've mentioned it, I want to say at the halfway point video or clip. I don't know. But Lucas Raymond, this kid is a stud. Okay, this guy is already he's going to be a future superstar of this league. I mean, 71 points in your 3rd year in the league, putting the team on your back in a lot of ways. I mean, he basically won that game against the Canadiens last night for the Red Wings. He had the game-tying goal in the 3rd period with the empty net. He had the overtime winner. And it's not like this is the first time he's done this. He has really been the shining star of this team. And look, if he's your future lead scorer, if he's your future, superstar guy, hey, I'll take it. All right? Because we need a superstar. And you know what? Maybe Lucas Raymond is that guy. And it just took, 3 years for him to really emerge. Now, the thing about it is he is playing in a contract year. So obviously he's playing much harder because he wants to make a lot of money. Not that that's to say that he's, he's going to fall off next year. But it is true that during contract years, guys in particular are going to want to have really good years. Because if you have a really bad year, you're not going to get a lot of money. But I guess the other thing for me to consider is, okay, if Lucas Raymond is the type of player we can expect from Steve Yzerman draft-wise, then why are we allowing for the Andrew Kopps, the Jeff Petries, the Ben Sherratts of the world to overcome this roster? It's like, well, if this is what people are saying, if people are like holding their support based on the fact that, well, look at Mo Sider. I believe he's like near the top, or if not the leader in the league in block shots. Like he's a really good defensive defenseman, and he has some offensive game to him as well. Mind you, I believe he's second career. It's like a career low in points for him, but his defensive game is very good. Lucas Raymond, obviously an offensive stud, like a goal machine, like a 30-goal scorer kind of guy, 70 points a season kind of guy, or at least that's his peak for right now. But if he can do this year in and year out, you're a superstar of this league, or at least a star. I don't really know if I like the distinctions with these sorts of things, but either way, right? If this is what we can come to expect from the prospects that are in our system, I want to see them over, Joe Veleno or Andrew Kopp. Like, what is the, like, and you might, like, the refrain would then be, well, maybe they're just not ready, or Stevie doesn't think they're ready, whatever. It's like, okay, well, we drafted Sider 4 years ago. He's on the team. We drafted, or more than 4 years ago. We drafted him in 2019. We drafted him 5 years ago. And then Lucas Raymond was 2020. It's like, well, those guys, like, are any other guys in their draft class, or any of those guys that are, top of the line prospects, or, in the AHL, I'm thinking of like Elmer Soderblom. He saw some playing time last year. I mean, even Simon Edmondson this year, he's finally seeing some playing time. He's an even later draft class. And I mean, I understand, higher round picks are going to get, are going to be, better in general, but still. My whole thinking here is, if these prospects were this good, if these prospects were at least as good as Raymond and Sider, and I don't disagree that they definitely could be, then I want to see them on the ice, right? I want to see them on the team, and hopefully that's what the future of this team is like. And regardless of whether or not we make the playoffs, that's one of the things that I can, hang my hat on, is that we do have a really good prospect pool. According to every publication, I've said this a million times, everybody has us in the top 10, some in the top 5 in terms of prospects. So hopefully that is what we're looking at in the future. But as it stands right now, first things first, go out into Montreal. So far, it's a 0-0 game. Go out and win. And then whatever happens is out of your control. But you got to go out there and win. Give yourself the best shot. And speaking of giving yourself the best shot, we'll get to the Tigers. We'll get to the NBA playoffs in a minute. I have to focus on this because this is something that is obviously near and dear to my heart. It is the headline of today's show. It is your favorite basketball team to make fun of. You all know them. You probably, if you're a fan of them, hate this team in a loving way. It's the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons, if it weren't for the Red Wings in the midst of a playoff chase and their own, kind of collapse, the Detroit Pistons would be the talk of the town. And not for a good reason. Because you know why? Because just a week ago, they clinched the single worst season in franchise history. And they didn't do it on any ordinary night. They did it on Fan Appreciation Night. They lost to the Chicago Bulls at home, a team that they've beaten multiple times in the year. And in losing to them, they got themselves the worst record in franchise history. What joy! What, like you couldn't make it up. And then obviously they end their season last Sunday, and they could just get blown out to the Spurs. Cade Cunningham wasn't playing. Jalen Durham wasn't playing. It was the Jaden Ivey and Marcus Saxler show, which, as you can see, doesn't work. Now, originally, I was going to talk about, moving on from this regime. This regime stinks, and, this is what has to happen before we talk about, what particular moves need to be made. But last night, as I was watching the Red Wings come back against the Canadiens, I got a little notification on my phone from Bleacher Report that said, and I quote, looking at it right now, Pistons Troy Weaver returning as GM, team to hire new head of basketball operations. I mean, what does a guy gotta do to get fired around here? This is, I saw this and I was speechless. And you know me, I talk a lot on this show. It's sports talk. I'm here to talk to you. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I couldn't believe that in actuality they were gonna run it back with this absolute hack artist, this complete con man hack who doesn't know, his foot from, his buttocks, right? He doesn't know anything about building a team. And yet, we are going to keep him around. And not just that. We are going to hire a president of basketball operations who's supposed to report directly to owner Tom Gores. And this is supposed to fix the issue? Like, first of all, what you're already telling Troy Weaver is, we don't trust you. We want someone that's on top of you who reports directly to the boss, to the owner, and he gets final say on everything you want to do. You don't trust him to be the GM, so then why even keep him around? And then furthermore, if you don't trust him now after finishing the season with the worst record, what makes you think that adding a babysitter is going to suddenly change the trajectory of this team? First of all, Tom, you hired the wrong guy on hiring Troy Weaver to begin with. So I don't know that I trust anybody who's reporting directly to you for anything, because you don't know anything about basketball and you clearly don't care about the Pistons. You care about, spending $1 gajillion on a coach who doesn't want to be here. You care about that. But how is this the standard for this team? It is so beyond acceptability in any profession. I couldn't imagine a world where my manager comes to me and says, "You know what, Mike, you've had the worst year of your career. You haven't been producing at the level that we expect you to. In fact, you've been below average for the entire time you've gotten here. And in fact, since you've gotten here, production has gotten worse. And also, we're keeping you around for another year." This doesn't happen in the real world. This can only happen in the sports world, where people are so utterly corrupt and negligent that they just don't care. They don't care about the fans. They don't care about the players on the team. Cade Cunningham is rotting away his young development years. And if he never truly becomes a number one point guard on a team, you can blame the Detroit Pistons for that. Because I think he certainly has potential to be a number one point guard in this league. I certainly think he does, but not on this team. And so, knowing that we have this bum, this moron running the team, what do? Well, first of all, I want to get rid of this notion from some Pistons fans that there is an untouchable on this team. I love Cade Cunningham. I have a t-shirt with Cade Cunningham on it. I do not want them to trade Cade Cunningham. If it was up to me, this team would just magically start winning. That's not real life. Okay? That's not real life. This young core, quote unquote, doesn't work. Maybe they might work individually. Maybe they might work in a different situation. Maybe Jaden Ivey is a really good guard somewhere. Maybe Cade Cunningham is a number one point guard somewhere. Regardless of it, this team has absolutely no draft capital. This team has absolutely no future right now. Certainly not with Troy Weaver at the helm. The only thing I could say is, well, you might as well trade your assets now and just build up whatever you can get, and then hope that the next guy, this new president of basketball operations, can miraculously raise this team from the dead in spite of Troy Weaver's horrible GMing. I don't think that's going to happen, but I get a little tired when I hear people like, "Oh, you can't trade Jaden. You can't trade Ivy. You can't trade Cade." Why not? We're losing with them. We're going to lose without them. You might as well. Like, Cade is your best asset. If you want to get any return that is meaningful, you have to trade a good asset. You have to trade something that somebody wants. Like, this was the problem with the trade deadline, was that you did trade someone that someone wants, but you got a terrible return. Like, you have, and that's why I'm not, fully committed to, like, I want Troy Weaver to make these moves tomorrow. I don't want him to make any moves. I want him to be away. I want him to be fired. I want him to never be around the Detroit Pistons ever again. I want him banished from the city of Detroit and LCA and even the ruins of the palace. I don't want him anywhere near it. And I want the same result for Tom Gores, but I you can't fire the owner. Okay? We're stuck with him until or unless he sells the team, the NBA kicks him out, or some sort of scandal involved in his, personal affairs forces him out. We're stuck with Tom Gores until, how old is Tom? Let's see. Tom Gores age. Tom Gores is 59 years old. His birthday is in a couple of months in July. So, assuming he lives a long life of, 70 plus, we're stuck with him for another 2 decades-ish. Probably more. Because he's, a billionaire and he's going to have top-notch medical, support. And, he's not going to, suddenly get a cold and die at 65, right? This is not going to happen. And I'm not even saying that I wish him to die. That's not, I don't want that to be misinterpreted. I don't like him as my owner. I'm sure maybe personally he might be a perfectly amicable individual. I'm not sure how he is as far as his business go. I've heard some rumors about that, but I'm not going to speak on that because I don't know enough about that. But either way, the thing that really bothers me is not simply that we had a bad season. I've dealt with a lot of bad seasons. We had the worst season ever. What exactly does Troy Weaver and this team have to do in order for Tom Gores to wake up and change something? Like, I just don't understand. You buy a sports team for what exactly? If I were to think, if I had the money to buy a sport, I'd buy a sports team because I want to win. I want to help the team win. I want to be involved in the game. Like, I don't get this idea that you just buy a sports team and, whatever, just do it. I'll just hire some guy that I can be friends with and, maybe we'll sell some tickets. It'll be kind of fun. And, maybe if we're lucky, we'll like make the playoffs or something. It's like, what kind of a world are you living in that you like, for one, the Canadians just scored. Ugh, great. Off to a bad start. That for one, your worldview is so twisted that you're just like, yeah, well, I'll just buy this team and I don't really care if they win or lose. The thing that still baffles me as well is that, you make more money when the team is good. So why these owners who don't care, like, they just don't understand that, like, the richest teams, the teams that make the most money, thinking of, like, I don't know, like the Dodgers or the Yankees or even like a team like the Cowboys. It's like they make a lot of money because they're good, right? Like they're not, and despite the fact that the Cowboys, haven't won a Super Bowl since the 90s, Jerry Jones still makes a lot of money every single year. Jerry Jones isn't, and the NFL is a little incomparable because all of those owners are more rich than any NBA team owner for the most part. But like, I guess it's getting to the point where I am becoming just so nothing towards the Pistons. Like so numb to the point where basically like my expectations for them as far as wanting to talk about them is if they do something so bad, like if they draft some idiot and I don't know, he like is like a complete bust, or they go on a crazy, like the peak of me making and talking about the Pistons was when they were losing a bunch of games in a row. Because I didn't talk about them down the stretch. After that losing streak ended, I think I talked about the Pistons on this show like 2 or 3 times. Maybe not even 3. I know at the trade deadline we talked about them, but like outside of that, I don't think I talked about the Pistons. because there was nothing to talk about. They were just so laughably bad in every facet. There was no benefit. There was nothing good coming from them. I didn't care to watch them half the time. It would be like, well, I guess they're on, so I'll throw it on. Oh, and they're losing. Wow, great, super. Like I didn't have any drive, and I don't want to be like that for a team that is, historically been pretty successful at various points in time. And Tom Gore is, I don't know, he's just got crack up his brain because he just doesn't know what he's doing. And no, Troy Weaver, you can stick around. Monty Williams, you coach the team with the worst record, you can stick around too. Nothing. Like there is nothing to get somebody. Like I don't know what you would have to do to get fired. I really don't know. I guess you'd have to break the new franchise record. You'd have to lose more games next year. I guess that's what it takes. So, super. We're feeling good. So, with that, let's talk some NBA playoffs. Let's talk some actual competent basketball teams and organizations. So, first of all, we have a couple of play-in games tonight. You got the Kings and the Warriors later tonight. That's an elimination game. Winner goes in as the either the 9 or the 10 seed. And then the I'm sorry, I'm just getting so distracted. The Lakers Pelicans, the winner goes on to be the 7 seed, while the loser goes on to play the 9/10 seed, depending on whoever, or I guess it would be whoever won that. Yeah, whoever won that game against Sacramento. So then they would play, and then that would go for who would play the 1 seed. But looking at all these teams, so let's start. I guess we'll just go down the line here. And I'll try my best. Okay. Again, I didn't really watch a whole lot of NBA stuff because the Pistons stunk. So anytime they were on, they were losing. I didn't really get a good view of other teams. And everything else is like whatever I kind of caught. So I'll run down. I don't think I'll give every single team, but I'll look at some teams that I feel decently good about. First of all, the Celtics. They are far and away the best team in basketball in terms of record. I mean, even just looking at the win-loss record here, the closest team in the Eastern Conference to them is the New York Knicks at 50-32. The Boston Celtics are 64-18. They are a team on a mission. Like, they got embarrassed in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, losing to the Miami Heat, who are, again, a play-in team. So I'm terrified of them as well. But they're a team on a mission. Obviously, a couple of years ago, they lose to the Golden State Warriors, and in a series that they definitely could have taken hold of. It'd be hard for me to say that they're not probably the favorite right now, but then I look at, Denver Nuggets. I mean, obviously, reigning champions. Nikola Jokic is an animal. All he does is just be large and get a lot of points. But then another team that I just really love is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, like, first of all, what a great story for them. Like, you have oh, sweet. It looks like Philly just took a 1-0. No goal. Dang it. Still no score. Never mind. Anyway, I mean, the Thunder, like, you look at, like, just a few years ago, I don't want to talk too much about the Pistons. You look at where the Thunder were a couple of years ago. They were a lottery team. I believe they were a lottery team last year. And this year, they're the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Obviously, that's a franchise that hasn't won since they were in Seattle, since they were the Supersonics. So that's definitely a team I'll be rooting for. Another team I'll be rooting for. One moment. Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota, that's another team that I think is kind of on a mission. I mean, like, a couple of years ago, obviously they had that win in the first round, and everybody was going crazy. It was insane celebrations, and then they get eliminated, and people kind of forget about them. And then last year they lose in the play-in to, I believe it was Denver, or not in the play-in, they lose in the first round. I think they were a play-in team, but they lost in the first round to the Denver Nuggets, who would go on to win the championship. I don't know if Karl Anthony Towns is back at this point. I think he is. But Anthony Edwards, I mean, Like he's absolutely as advertised. And you got to think he was drafted just 4 years ago in the same draft as Killian Hayes. Obviously, the Pistons lose that lottery, of course. You got to wonder where the Pistons would be at if they had won that lottery. If they had won Anthony Edwards, and then assuming everything else goes the same way. So they win Anthony Edwards, and they also win Cade Cunningham. So you have Cade Cunningham, you have Anthony Edwards, and then Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and then I guess Asar Thompson. You got to wonder how much of a dynamic change that would be, if at all. I don't know. I mean, Anthony Edwards clearly is a generational player. Clearly, a superstar of this league. And I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And they're going up against the Phoenix Suns, a team that I remember saying at the beginning of the year, I didn't really trust what they were doing. They're a 6 seed, so they make the playoffs. But I don't trust a team with Kevin Durant driving the bus. I just don't. I don't do it because he's proven time and time again that outside of his stint at the Golden State Warriors, he can't help his team win. He certainly can't do it by himself. And nobody can do it by themselves. That's a bit of a misnomer. But it's like ever since he left the Warriors, he's been on this mission to prove his legacy. And he has failed every single place he's gone. Failed with the Brooklyn Nets. He's probably going to fail with the Phoenix Suns. I remember when they got him and everyone was, oh my gosh, the Suns, they're going to totally win now. They got Chris Paul. They got Kevin Durant. They got Devin Booker. And I was like, I know this isn't going to work. You got Chris Paul, who chokes in the playoffs. You got Kevin Durant, who chokes in the playoffs, and you got Devin Booker, who chokes. You got the 3 musketeers of choking in the playoffs, and it's the Phoenix Suns, a team that is infamous for losing in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I have no trust in them. But also, Seth is not here, but I will talk about his Milwaukee Bucks. So they are technically stinted to play the Indiana Pacers. But the thing about it is they don't actually include the fact that because they're coached by Doc Rivers, they will lose at some point in the playoffs in embarrassing fashion. So I don't really know why they include them. Yeah, I mean, look, Doc, haven't won since you won with the Celtics on a team that I could have coached, right? Every single time you find an embarrassing way to lose. He's the Mike Babcock of the NBA. He's this coach who was carried by a superstar team. Funny enough, in 2008, both times. And he just can't win outside of it. He has no ability to coach. No ability. Like, I really don't know how he keeps getting jobs. Like, he just consistently fails, despite the fact that a lot of the teams that he has coached are loaded, right? With superstar. Like this team, Dame, Chris Middleton, Giannis, obviously, although he's not going to be playing in game 1, due to injury. So it's not looking good for the Bucks. I mean, poor Seth. Hopefully this time his team can escape the first round and not get eliminated. At least this time they're not playing a play-in team. So they don't have the embarrassment of potentially losing that. But I mentioned it earlier, the Miami Heat. Okay, look, obviously the reigning Eastern Conference champions. They're in the play-in again, and I don't bet against Jimmy Butler. I don't. I'm done with it. Philadelphia, I don't care. You stink. I hate Philadelphia. The 76ers they're just awful. I know Joel Embiid got hurt, but I don't like them at all. They're like the antithesis of everything I like in basketball. But another team that's a lot of fun, the Orlando Magic. Hey, the 5th seed. That's another team. Just a couple of years ago was in the lottery with us. Just a couple of years ago, they won the number 1 overall pick. They got Paolo Banchero. 2 years later, they're in the playoffs as a 5th seed. And they definitely got a shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's going to be an interesting series. Donovan Mitchell, Spida, and that's his nickname, right? Evan Mobley as well on that Cavs team. See, it's like, I look at this, and it's like, oh, yeah, they were a lottery team. The Cavs were a lottery team. Magic were a lottery team. Pacers were a lottery team. Oklahoma City was a lottery team. Minnesota was a lottery team. The Kings, I believe, were a lottery team. Like all of these teams were lottery teams in the same span that the Pistons were a lottery team. And all of them are in the playoffs or in the play-in. Or I guess it's all the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. All of them are in the playoffs. And then the Pistons are worse than where they were. Somehow. In miraculous fashion, they've managed to get worse from already being bottom 3rd in the league. But with all that, I'm really looking forward to these playoffs. I think it's going to be another great year of NBA playoffs. That's the best part of the NBA season for me, especially as a Pistons fan, because I don't really get to enjoy fun basketball. It's when players really try. Is the NBA playoffs. It's similar to the NHL in that I really get into it once it's the playoffs, but NHL playoffs are better than the NBA playoffs in my opinion. But really looking forward to these playoffs. And speaking of looking forward to playoffs, I know technically it's not set right now. The Red Wings down 1-0 to the Canadiens, so it's not looking good. Oh, they just scored. Oh my gosh. Mo Sider just scores. I was okay. I was just saying I wasn't looking good. And Mo Sider ties it up. 1-0. There you go, Mo. There you go, son. All right. Now, if Philly could just score, please, that'd be nice. That would be awesome, but great goal there for Mo Sider. And speaking of playoffs, anyway, want to just real quick, we're going to take a look, similar deal. We're going to take a look at the NHL playoffs. So obviously, again, they're not technically set. We're still waiting. Right now, the Washington Capitals are in the playoff spot, but obviously that could change by the end of the night. But we'll talk about where they're at. So right now, matchups in the Eastern Conference, you got the Bruins against the Lightning, Florida Panthers against the Leafs, Rangers against the Capitals, although again, that's still TDR. The Canes versus the Islanders, Stars versus the Knights, Jets versus the Avs, Canucks versus the Preds, and the Oilers versus the Kings. So I like all of these teams, essentially. But for the most part, I like all of these teams. In that, if any one of these teams won, I really wouldn't be that upset. But going down the list here, as far as teams that I'm not too high on, well, the obvious one is the Maple Leafs because it's the Maple Leafs. And I know that's a weak answer. I know it's a casual hockey fan. I know. But for one, they're going against the Florida Panthers, and the Florida Panthers are a team on a mission. I mean, look, I know the Red Wings right now, they're a bubble team. They're not in or out. They are out of the playoffs right now. But when we played the Panthers those couple of times, they were suffocating. They were like far and away the most difficult team that we've had to play all year. And maybe it's just a matchup thing. Maybe it's, they just match up really well against us. Regardless, the Panthers are a team on a mission. Like, they are absolutely killers. And on the roster, I mean, it's stud and also more studs. You got Reinhart, you got Kachuk, you got Bennett, you got Forsling, you got Montour. You got so many guys that are going to get you positive ice time, whether it's scoring goals or, any number of things, right? Like scoring goals, blocking shots, whatever. Sam Reinhart is in a contract year. He's, leading the team in points with 92. I would be shocked if he ends up anywhere other than Florida next year, but I'm pretty sure I've heard they're in kind of a weird situation cap-wise. They might not be able to keep him. That would be a guy I would love if the Red Wings could pick up in free agency, but I doubt that's going to happen. Anyway, as far as in the Eastern Conference, as far as teams that I trust, honestly, it's like the Panthers and the Rangers are the two best teams in my view. As far as the standings go, the Rangers do have the best record in the league. They have 114 total points, 55, 23, and 4 overtime losses. That's insanity. That's great. Like, even for like a good team, usually you end up with like, maybe 5 or, double digit. Like, you'll get like 10. Like Boston has 15, Toronto has 10. Like, crazy to think about. But the Rangers are another one of those teams where, again, it's like they just have so many guys that are just studs. I mean, Panarin has 120 points. The bread man is out here just murdering people. He's bald and he's on a mission, damn it. He's going to kill you. Zibanejad, I just love him because of his hair. And again, this is casual hockey fan. This is me, not as an expert in hockey, as a fun observer of the sport. I think it's the Rangers and I think it's the Panthers. Everybody else, and again, it's playoff hockey. Anything can happen. The Panthers, when they won the President's Trophy, got swept, I believe. Maybe not swept. They lost early in the. Actually, they might have gotten swept. I don't remember what happened. I know they got eliminated in the first round. But I would like the only teams, to move along a little bit, that I kind of loathe to want to see succeed in the Eastern Conference. And it's not because I don't like them on any like a personal level. It's the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders, and they are playing one another. I'm going to tell you right now, that series is probably going to be the most agonizing series in recent memory. You have two teams whose bread and butter is not scoring a lot of points. Not scoring a lot of goals, I should say. Like, the Hurricanes are one of the best defensive teams in hockey, right? Like, let me actually look at what their goal differential is, because probably it's plus 66. Can I get goals goals? So they've scored just 276 goals and given up 210. I want to say that 210 number. Well, it's not as low as Florida, but Florida, they're every time I watch the Hurricanes, again, it's suffocating. It's like they win games 2-0 or 1-0 or some nonsense. And the Islanders are a negative goal differential team. And they're in the third seed. I don't know what Patrick Waugh told them, but I hope that whoever ends up being the coach for the Red Wings, whether Derek Lalonde sticks around or whether he gets fired because we don't make the playoffs or whatever, whatever he's saying, just start saying it. Because he magically turned an Islanders team that was dead in the water into a third seed playoff team. I don't know what happened. But moving along to the Western Conference. So another team that's very defensive from the few times that I've watched them is Dallas Stars. I believe I'm pretty sure they have the best goalie in hockey, if I can recall. What's his name? Ottinger? Yeah, Ottinger. I don't know if he's technically speaking the best goalie in hockey, but I know he's pretty high ranked. Their leading points getter has just 80 points, which is pretty good. It's better than anyone on the Red Wings, but it's not a lot. All right, it's not amazing. Wyatt Johnston, he's also a really good player. 65 points. That they're not known for having a lot of firepower, but they're still a really solid team. They're solid top to bottom. And there's a reason that they are where are they? They're the number one seed. And they're the number one, I think they're the number one overall seed. They're the best team in the Western Conference. And I would love to see them succeed. I love the colors they got, basically NHL, they kill it in the graphic department. So I love what they got going there in Dallas. And they're taking on the Golden Knights, the reigning Cup champions. It'd be really weird to see the Knights just get eliminated in the first round when at the beginning of this year, it just seemed like they were just murdering teams. And then, by the end of it, they're the second wild card team in the West. Things can change really quick. And Vegas is a really well-run franchise, which is still very weird for me to say because they're just so new. But clearly, this is a very well-run organization. But I don't know. You're going to be going up against a suffocating defense. So it's either going to go one of two ways. Either, puck luck is going to fall in favor of Vegas, and that's not totally out of the realm of possibility, or Dallas is just going to choke you to death, and you're just not going to get out of it. So, which is probably the more likely scenario. But another team that I'm going to definitely be keeping an eye out for is the Canucks. The Canucks had an absolutely... I don't think anybody expected this from the Vancouver Canucks this year. They exceeded expectations and then some. They've got some really nice players on that team as well to watch for. You got Philip Hronek, you got Elias Pettersson, you got Quinn Hughes, you got JT Miller. You've got a lot of guys that are out there killing it for you. I really think they could be a sleeper team in a weird way because in the West, it's you have the powers that be in a way. You have the Oilers, you have the Avs. This Vancouver Canucks team hasn't been in the playoffs in a few years here. Whereas Edmonton has been in it. They're certainly going to want to try to get further in. But similar to the Maple Leafs, I just can't trust Edmonton. I just can't do it. it's like, yeah, Connor McDavid's great. Yeah, Leon Draisaitl's great. Like they're super. Everything about the Edmonton Oilers is great, right? Like on paper, you look at this roster, you look at the stats, they are a very good team. But they just fall apart in the play. Like I don't know if it might be a lack of depth. It might be they just aren't good in the playoffs. Ah, great. The Capitals just scored. No! 1-0 Caps at the intermission. Philly, I hate you. If you lose this game and we win, I will never forgive Philadelphia. I really will never forgive them. But it's not over yet. They got two intermissions. So they got 2 periods, Philly, to come back. But, gosh. I'm very nervous about this. But where was I? Here we are. Yeah, Edmonton, I just don't really know that I trust. And then here's a true sleeper, is the Nashville Predators. I mean, first of all, they went on an absolute tear near the end of the season. Like they went out and they won like a billion games in a row, got themselves back into the playoffs. They're in the second wild card spot. And they're another one of these teams that, like, you know, they got Gustav Nyquist, they got Philip Forsberg. Like those are 2 Roman Josi, I think it's Josi. Like they don't have like a lot of like big super. I mean, I guess Forsberg is a bigger name. Like, but they're kind of a sleeper team. I don't think anybody expected them to even make the playoffs this year. I really didn't think about them that much, but that's another team that just never has had any success historically. They've never won a Stanley Cup. I'd love to see the city of Nashville have a champion because I don't know if Tennessee, outside of like college football or any college related stuff, I don't think they've actually. Grizzlies have never won. Titans have never won. They don't have a baseball team. The Predators have never won. Yeah, I mean, it's rough in Tennessee, man. Sports crowd is rough there, man. You don't got anything to look back on. But I will say this. Because it's the NHL, anybody can win this. Literally anybody. And I'm not trying to just say that to obfuscate any sort of predictions for who I think is the favorite. I mean, again, I told you, Florida, New York. I mean, Dallas is a suffocating team. Vancouver could really go all out. I mean, they really haven't stopped. Maybe the Avalanche as well. I didn't even talk about them. They're a team that's absolutely killers. But it's the NHL, man. I can't tell you who's gonna win this. It's too unpredictable. Although one thing that I can most certainly predict, probably not gonna have a Canadian Stanley Cup this year. I know, it's very painful. Haven't had a Stanley Cup go to Canada since the early 90s. And right now you got the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're the only team from Canada in the Eastern Conference that are in. And you got the Winnipeg Jets in the West, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Edmonton Oilers. So you got 4 total teams, Canada, to bring the cup back north of the border. But I don't think it's going to happen. You know, you got 4, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. You got 4 out of 16 teams. So a quarter of the teams are Canadian. But because 3 of them are all in the Western Conference, and inevitably they will have to play one another at some point, that it's not exactly a 25. Well, I guess it technically still is a 25% shot, but you know, it can jump up and down sporadically. Like if I don't know how the bracket is going to work exactly, but either way, because the playoffs aren't technically set yet, at least in the East, it's either going to be Washington or Detroit, I believe. Or I guess technically it could still be Pittsburgh in that playoff spot. But and I guess if we win and we make the playoffs, we'll be playing the New York Rangers. If the Red Wings win and Washington loses, it'd be us against the New York Rangers. So it wouldn't be a great situation. But hey, making the playoffs. Anything can happen. So moving along to, I guess, our final segment. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, well, I was going to say it's a little bit of a shorter show. We've been live for almost an hour. So, this week in baseball. So, our Detroit Tigers, everybody's favorite team, They split the 4-game set against the Twins over the weekend. They get swept in the doubleheader. And then they start this 4-game set with the Rangers. They get shut out in game 1, 1-0. Then they come back, win against the Rangers. Or again, I don't know why I said that way. They come back and win 4-2, and a chance to at least split the series tomorrow afternoon. And then they still have an opportunity to win the 4-game set, which would be incredible. But my question is this real? Like, is this team actually like kind of good? Like, not like amazing, but like a good team, right? Like gonna be fighting for a playoff spot. Because I don't understand how this is happening. Like, it seems to me that many of these wins, you look at that second Pirates game, you look at, the game on Sunday against the Twins, you look at the game just today against the Rangers, and it's a lot of late inning, getting timely hits, knocking around a bullpen. But the starting pitchers against us are killing us because this offense is just not good. Statistically speaking, as a team, okay, we rank in the bottom 25, in the bottom, let's see, we are 26th in batting average, and I believe we're 27th in OPS. We are 27th in OPS, 26th in batting average, and we're in the top 10 in strikeouts. It's a really bad combination, okay? As far as walks, I actually don't know where we stand in walks. We're 16th, so we're middle of the pack in walks. A little below average. And as far as particular players, well, your best hitter right now by average is Kerry Carpenter, and he's not an everyday player. Although he has played a little bit more most of the days. He's come in and played, he's played 17 total games, and I don't think that's exactly how many we played, right? No, because what's our record? Hold on. Pulling up a bunch of links here. Oh, he has played every day. Really? He hasn't started every day. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Okay, I don't know if he started every day. I could swear he hasn't. But either way, Kerry Carpenter is your best hitter. He's batting .302. He's got a .920 OPS. He's certainly lived up to that sort of, he's going to take a step forward. And I'm glad to see it because if he's going to be one of your most reliable hitters, I don't care who it is. I don't care if Kerry Carpenter or Riley Green or defensive throw. I don't care who it is. Of those guys, I want at least one of them to really take that step forward early on this season, really get ahead of the jump, make a run for, a really meaningful season. However, we still have guys like Javi Baez, who is batting sub 200, sub 150 even. And we still have guys like Jake Rogers, who is batting 100. And we have, this is the one that gets me, is Parker Meadows, a guy who I remember was one of the guys that they pointed out as oh yeah, this guy's got a future on this team. This guy's got a future. He might not have a future in baseball. He's batting .056. He has 2 hits on the season. One of them was a triple, to be fair. So that's probably why his OPS is .320. This is because his one hit was a triple. Why is he still, why have we not sent him down? I just, what benefit does it give for Parker Meadows' development as a hitter if we are just letting him go? I know his defense is good. All right, before people get bad and talk, he's really good in the field. I know. But at a certain point, your offense has to be a factor. If you are a walking strikeout, or if you're a walking out in general, you can't bat .056 and be in the major leagues. You can't do it. I don't care how good your defense is. I don't care if every hit you get, if you get 4 hits a year and every one of them is a home run. I can't have you on my team. I can't do it. And again, it's another player that, we could have gone out and gotten more bats on this lineup. And I'm not even going to go down the route of naming names necessarily. But the fact is, we don't have extra outfielders to go out and fill the role for Parker Meadows, so we can't send him down. That's pretty much the reality of it, right? We don't, or for whatever reason, Scott Harris and Jeff Greenberg don't want to send him down, which is baffling to me, given, of course, that, he's batting 056. So super stuff from Parker Meadows. Excellent stuff. But Riley Green, he's starting to turn it on a little bit. He's got a 773 OPS on the year. I know recently he's been batting like 300 in his last 7 games, or 250. So, it was 300, I think, yesterday. But last 7 games have been pretty good. A 733 OPS in his last 7 games. So he might be starting to turn it on a little bit. I'm not like in utter panic mode about Spencer Torkelson, but I'm certainly not in, things are super duper for Spencer Torkelson. Now, granted, close to a 700 slugging or OPS in his last 7. He's started to pick it up in average. Like, there's still runway for him to really pick it up, especially given the fact that the entire offense has been absolutely terrible. I can at least have some solace in that. But like at a certain point, it's like, Spence, you got to be able to really turn it on. And he's had some good at bats. So hopefully he just can really hit, start fire at some point. But, when you're taking 1 of 1, I know it's not his fault. He didn't choose to get taken 1 of 1, but at a certain point you have to produce. But speaking of production, the pitching at least is absolutely fantastic. I mean, Casey Mize, he had probably his best pitching since 2021 today, giving up just the 2 runs in 1 inning that he gave up those runs, by the way. Outside of that, he was absolutely lights out against the Rangers. Let me actually pull up his numbers here real quick. Let me pull that up on the box score. Yeah, so he pitched 6 innings, gave up 5 total hits, which is not amazing, but 6 innings, 6 Ks, just a couple of earned runs. His ERA on the year is 4.11. Hey, you know what? Again, he was taking 1 of 1, so that's not exactly what you want to see from the first overall pick, but he didn't choose that. He's coming back from injuries, starting to get warmed up. Hopefully, he can really get into form. And, if he can play as a consistent number 2 starter, because Skubal is clearly the number 1 at this point, if he can play at that level consistently, it'll have been worth it in a way. Like, obviously, when you take a pitcher number 1 overall, you're thinking this guy is going to be your future ace, superstar, all that jazz. But obviously, things change. As long as you can be a good contributor on this team, I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm really not. I can't call somebody a bust if they're a good player. If they were taken number 1 overall, I don't care. Like, if they're just a good player, fine. I don't care where you're taken, because you can get good players anywhere, and you can get superstars anywhere, especially in baseball. Like, you got like a million draft picks, so it's like, yeah, like I don't care where you were taken, just be a good player. That's that. But the pitching outside of just that has just been fantastic. You got obviously Skubal. He's been amazing. I'm looking at these numbers. Like, Skubal's average against is 148. That's incredible. Like, as far as, whip, Flaherty as well. He's got just a 120 whip, and he had a good game on Sunday as well. Andrew Chafin really starting to turn on. He's got a 100 average against. Like, that is video game type numbers. This bullpen is really, really good. Pitching staff is overall really, really good. So, for the sake of this pitching staff, can we please generate some offense? All I'm asking. Just offense that's not dependent on being, the final 2 innings of the game. Can we just do that, please? That would be excellent. But I don't know. Maybe it's asking for too much. All right. But with that, that is where I guess we'll wrap it up here. So, I don't know if I really want to stay live for just the hockey. I don't think I'll be able to because I gotta cut out clips and stuff. So, we'll know by the end of the night whether or not the Red Wings are in the playoffs. Right now, they're tied with the Canadiens. But unfortunately, the Capitals are winning. They're up 1-0 against the Flyers. So Philly's got to pick that up. Philly has to win in order for us to, even regardless of what we do here against Montreal, in order for us to make the playoffs. So it's either going to end as a really good night or it's going to end as a depressing night. So we'll see. We'll see. But with that, I appreciate everyone for stopping by and listening in, hanging out. If you enjoyed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. You want to talk NBA playoffs, want to talk NHL play, anything that we talk about on the show, leave a comment. We'll talk about it. I'll probably respond, depending on what you say. I might be a little smarmy depending on what you say, but either way. Again, if you enjoyed, subscribe, like, comment. We're going to get out of here. Appreciate y'all for stopping by and have a great night. See you later. Goodbye. Goodbye.